You're listening to How to 20-something, the best podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to focus on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life. I'm your host, Jess Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Jess Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20-something. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20-something, where today is all about how to make the necessary changes in your life if you're unhappy with where you're currently at. This could be in terms of your job, your friendships, your romantic partner, your family dynamics, even your city. Because throughout your 20s, you are bound to come across at least one of these situations where maybe you're not miserable and crying every single day, but you're also not happy. It's this slow build that happens where your tiny tolerances stack up until you've decided you've had enough. You get to this point where there are more feelings of unhappiness than happiness, and it leaves you thinking, I don't like this anymore. If you're an extremist, then your immediate thought is going to be something along the lines of, time to burn my entire life to the ground and start from scratch. Rebuild. Which is totally unnecessary, because if there's anything I know about life situations, is that everything is figure-outable. There's always something you can do to improve your circumstances. And throughout this episode, I'll show you how each tactic applies to each area of your life. I also feel like this is a very appropriate topic to bring to light right now because it's January at the time of this episode being released. And I've made episodes on the January blues in the past, so this is a play on that in terms of timing. Since I find levels of unhappiness skyrocket with this post-holiday hype, when the days are very short and very, very cold, and we tend to ruminate. So, break out your happy lamps or order one if you don't have one, and let's get into it. This topic was actually brought up with one of my personal training clients a few months ago who definitely likes to keep me on my toes, where in November, he kept late canceling his sessions. Like, we're talking anywhere from 5 to 35 minutes prior to his morning session, and sometimes he's my first session of the day, so it's very frustrating to be out of bed, dressed and ready to go, and then receive the text that he's not showing up today. I'm pretty sure I life coach him more than I personal train him, but that's the beauty of having both as my career path because there's a lot of carryover. So anyways, this conversation came up and we got to talking about him wanting to quit his job. And he already told me that he actually doesn't want to do that because then, and I quote, "I will be ugly and miserable versus just miserable if I stay at my job that pays for my lifestyle and personal training." And I challenged him and said, why does being miserable have to be part of each option? Why can't there be an option where you're happy or not stressed or not miserable and be able to pay for things that help you look and feel good? So we opened up that conversation and it came up with options that he could do. And it came down to 3. 1, change companies. 2, flirt with other departments. This was so his manager would basically get jealous and appreciate all of his hard work. And 3, change departments. This client said changing companies wasn't on the list for him to even entertain, and he doesn't really want to change departments. What he really wants is for his manager to treat him better and appreciate him more. But that's the hard part. And it's going to show up in almost every category I'm going to discuss today when it comes to person relationships. You can't control what other people are or aren't doing. You could want them to change until you're blue in the face, but that's just not how things work. You have to look at yourself and ask, what do you have control over? What can you personally do about your current situation that does not involve asking someone else to do something differently? Because people aren't going to change like that. People only change in your favor when they want to change. And even then, it's not in your favor. It's usually in favor of them. Life would be far too easy if you were like, hey, can you change? I don't like that. And poof, the person changes to suit your exact needs. Unfortunately, that does not exist in today's society. I don't think that's ever existed in anyone's society. So all you have is yourself. These are your own actions and reactions, which is controlling how you react to something and then act in accordance. It's one of the 6 pillars rooted in my Own Your Life system that I take my one-on-one clients through, which if you're looking to make any change right now so your life is better, then head to the show notes. Let's hop on a call. There's no better time to step into a coaching partnership with me than right now. And together we get to make a plan to turn your particular situation around. So misery isn't part of your options either. In this example I'm giving, his options that he was in full control over were to flirt with other departments or change departments entirely, since we've already ruled out changing companies. But here's where everyone gets tripped up. If you're not working with a coach. When it comes time to taking action, we freeze. It's really easy to identify what you need to do, but really difficult to actually apply the steps to doing the things you know you need to do. This client in particular is a master at being handed all the tools and support and resources, and then essentially closing his eyes and continuing to throw himself a stressed out pity party. Like, his sleep is awful, so I talked to him about all the sleep tactics he could do. Since his current ones are obviously not working, I even handed him a book to put himself to sleep to, and he never read a single page. That's besides the point. If you're listening right now and are thinking, okay, Jess, I also am miserable at my job, what can I do about it? Then great, come step into my office. I think one of the best things you can do is give yourself a deadline and then know what happens within that deadline and when that deadline happens. It can feel really scary to make changes in your career or step back into the job search or talk to someone more higher up than you about what's going on. But only you can answer this for yourself. What are you willing to tolerate? What can you let go? And what can you talk to someone about? And then once you do all of the things that are within your control, give yourself that deadline. Until when are you willing to put up with this treatment if things don't turn around? This applies to every area of your life that involves another human being, but I'm starting with your career. Is there a mentor or an old boss you can talk to about what to do or how to best navigate this situation? Is there a meeting you can book with your manager and in that meeting discuss that you feel like there is a communication issue and you would like to work on a solution to make their life easier? Because if your manager's life is easier and happier, yours will be too. Yes, it involves some ass kissing, so pucker up, buttercup. And then really ask yourself, what are you being sensitive over or what can you let go? Because anything else is worth bringing up to someone to help make your life less miserable. This is providing you don't want to change companies entirely and go through the job hunt and interview process, since you do always have the option to leave, but I know you don't really want to do that unless you're crying every day. Then yes, get out. Your mental health is very important. So this level of control that you have comes down to 3 pieces. What are you willing to tolerate? What can you do about your situation? And until when are you going to put up with this mistreatment after you've done everything you could do to improve your situation? Whether it's your work, your friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your mom, dad, sister, brother, any relevant relationship in your life that is causing unhappiness, that is worth saving. The irony is one of my girlfriends is in what I define as an unhealthy relationship. And while I was going through my friendship issues in the fall, she was going through her relationship issues. And she's the one that was like, if this was a guy, would you tolerate this level of mistreatment or would you say goodbye? And I said, I would say goodbye. And then she said, okay, so after you talk to her, how long are you going to give it to see if things improve? Now, I do wish this friend would apply her own advice to her relationship, but she never asked me my opinion, and I've learned the very hard way to not give it if I'm not asked. Unless you're paying me as your coach, in which case I'm going to ask a lot of questions, give them opinions, and make sure that you're seeing things clearly. But me and this friend spoke back in October about what was going on for me, and I said that I was going to give it one more time and ask for what I need from this friendship, which is effort when it comes to making plans and seeing me, and give it until the end of the year to reevaluate. Well, if you listened to any of my most recent episodes, especially last week's, then you would know we never saw each other again. I reached out, asked her how I could be a better friend, with the roundabout goal of getting her to ask me how she could be better, which she did. She said what she needed to. I said what I needed to. We made plans for 2.5 weeks later, and it all blew up 3 days before our plans because she let her own story consume any other possibility of what was actually happening. And I tell you this because there are going to be so many different times when you do everything that is within your control and you do it right to the best of your ability and you try to salvage your situation to make you less anxious, stressed, or upset, and it's still not going to work out in your favor. Or I guess it is in your favor. It's just not the outcome you hoped for. So I didn't need to give it until the end of the year because she decided she didn't have the capacity for our friendship prior to giving it another go. People are difficult to deal with. You're working with their beliefs, stories, realities, as well as your own beliefs, stories, and realities. But if you're dealing with someone who is either closed-minded, selfish, or in some serious need of therapy, then it's not going to work out in the way you want. It's why we can't focus on what someone is doing or not doing in order for them to change, just on how you feel and what you want to do about it. The best thing you can do is be your own advocate. Stand up for yourself and what you want, and if someone cares about you, then they will be willing to work together to reach a common ground. You'll know it's a situation worth fighting for when you can both speak your truths, understand the other person's point of view, and then do something about it. And that goes for your manager too. Obviously, not in the same way as an intimate relationship or inner circle person, but it's all about collaborating on how to get the best of both worlds and being willing to work on your half of the relationship at hand because it's rare that you aren't contributing to any of the friction and misery. As long as you know you're communicating clearly, expressing what you need, letting the other person do the same and meet you somewhere in the middle, identify what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not, and set a timeline to reevaluate whether things have actually changed, then you're good to go. You're in your zone of control to fix your unhappiness. What you can't do is force someone to change, to care more, prioritize you, show up differently. You can help them see how their actions are affecting you and your relationship as a whole, but you cannot get someone to behave differently. Do what you can. Show up, communicate, hold space for the fix without bringing up past disagreements, because I know you're thinking, if this person would just change, everything would be fine. But again, I'm purposely being repetitive here because that is not how people work. Your responsibility is yourself. Here's what's not working. Here's what I need. Here's what I'm willing to do. Now, what about you? And if they don't want to join you in this process of improving the current atmosphere, then you have your answer. And it's time to walk away, change jobs, switch teams, break up, release them, because you are not meant to live your life contorting yourself into a version that is serving other people at your own expense just so you can be treated well. When dealing with people, your power lies in your boundaries and speaking up. The only category of your life where talking things out doesn't have the same level of carryover is if it's your environment. So that's the city you live in, which one option is definitely move somewhere new. But before you do that, you need to ask yourself, why do you want to move? Because chances are, if you're unhappy in this city, your problems are going to follow you to the next one. If you can't make friends here, what makes you think you're going to make friends the next one? Now, it is possible you've outgrown your surroundings or the city you're in isn't what you thought it would be. Or if you're like me back in 2019, you accepted a job in a city you never ever wanted to live in. I moved out of Orlando because I never wanted to be there in the first place, and then it became a place of stuckness. It represented a shit ton of hardship in my life, and I knew that if I wanted to have my own business, that I needed somewhere new where I could reinvent myself. However, moving is expensive. So if it's not actually the city itself that you hate, or that there is an opportunity to grow somewhere else, then you need to change things up in your city to make it more you. That could be switching gyms, moving to a different apartment for the fresh start feel, change your route to work, join a new community, change other elements of your life to make your city feel more like a home and isn't keeping you in this state of unhappiness. But overall, being unhappy isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a sign that it's time for something to change, that what was once working is no longer working for you. So don't ignore that signal. Do something about it. And definitely don't go into the extreme and make reckless changes. Advocate. Think things through. And take responsibility for the roles you're playing in your unhappiness. You're not unhappy because you're stuck. You're unhappy because you keep hoping someone else will change something to make you happier. So own up to your happiness and do something about it. Which is exactly how I'm going to conclude this episode of How to 20-something. So if you liked what you heard, learned something new, are ready to make a much needed change, or know someone who needs to hear this, then please share this episode, send it along, or post it to social media, and tag me when you do. Help me move up in podcast rankings for 2026 and expand my reach to every single 20-something out there navigating the most confusing decade of their life. And as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.